Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Moletrap here, coming at you with another StarCraft commentary. And in case you missed the most recent GSL, the finals was an epic match between Stats and Rogue, and they are some really high-level players that have met time and time again over many tournaments throughout both of their careers. But this is a game that you probably haven't seen between the two of them before. And the reason why you probably haven't seen it before is because they weren't playing StarCraft 2 against each other. Sorry if I debated you a little bit if you are a StarCraft 2 fan looking for some more action between these two StarCraft 2 titans, but I did not lie, however. This is a match between Stats and Rogue, Stats you can see on your screen right now. This is from 2012 when they played against each other in the Pro League, which is the team league for StarCraft 1. Before StarCraft 2 had been, before KESPA, before the pro gaming teams in Korea had changed over to StarCraft 2, the old pro gaming teams, I should say. This is in 2012, so there are some teams that have been playing StarCraft 2 for a while, like Slayers or OGS, but they were StarCraft 2 teams that started for StarCraft 2. And here, the opponent of Stats today is none other than Rogue. You saw on the screen there his name was Real. That was his ID when he was playing in StarCraft 1. And so this is the first time that I'm aware of, that they played against each other in a tournament. It's probably the first time that they played against each other in a tournament. It might have been that they played against each other in some practice at some point or on ladder. But this is their first ever tournament game. This began the rivalry, if you could call it that lasted throughout several years because they have played in several tournaments, many tournaments over the years in StarCraft 2. So let's get into this game with them playing against each other in StarCraft 1 because they did both start off as StarCraft 1 pro gamers and played for their StarCraft 1 teams up until their teams switched to StarCraft 2, and then they both switched to StarCraft 2, and obviously their careers took off in StarCraft 2. So here is Stats. It's going to be the red Protoss in the bottom right, and Rogue is going to be the brown Zerg in the top left. And like I said, he did go by Real then, and so I may switch back and forth. I guess I'll call him Rogue. To go along with the gag maybe that I started this off with, and so he's gonna be the Zerg in the top left. So they both stayed with the same race when they switched to StarCraft 2, which isn't too surprising. And it was not long after this. It was in 2012 that the KESPA teams like KT Rolster switched over to StarCraft 2 at some point in 2012, I believe. And so this was kind of like leading up to that era before they switched. But they had been playing for a little while already. In fact, Stats, actually, let's set up these guys' situations right now at this point in time of this game. So at this point in time, this is actually the second game ever that Rogue has ever played in a televised match. And I actually casted his first ever televised game as well on my channel if you want to check it out. But this is his second match ever, and he's been sent out in the Pro League to represent his team, which is Hwasheng Oz, which is Jaedong's StarCraft team, StarCraft 1 team, obviously became a StarCraft 2 team. And this is only a second game ever. He's never gotten into a major tournament before in StarCraft 1 or anything like that, so he's kind of a little bit of an unknown entity. But he's decent enough that his team said, all right, we're going to put him out there and represent our team in the Pro League in the team match. So he's got to be somewhat strong. And on the other side of things, Stats has actually already had a bit of a career. He started in the tournaments in StarCraft 1 in 2008, so he's been playing for a while here. This is, like I said, this game is being played in 2012. So he's actually already been on the scene for 4 years. And while I would call Rogue a B-teamer at this point, Stats is actually what I would call an A-teamer. He's not the kind of player that's like tip-top level that you can expect to to advance to the finals in a Star League or anything like that, but he has been a solid performer for his team in the Team League, and he has a pretty good record, especially versus other Protoss players, actually. So Stats is actually probably the favorite here just because he's more known, but also he's got a lot more experience. And so even though at the beginning it did look like he was having a little bit of nerves or something like that, he probably is not feeling any nerves. He's been on this stage many times before. So in any case, so enough introduction of these players, though. These players' builds are starting to really form up here, and we of course have the Forge expansion for Stats. Quick expansion, obviously, as with all Zerg play, for Rogue as well, but he's gotten the spawning pool down, and he's starting to get Zerglings out. And it's pretty much looking like it's going to be a standard back row game. You saw a little bit of an exchange there where, Stats had to scout and find out when the spawning pool is made to decide if you want to make a cannon first or a gateway, etc., or Nexus. And but it looks like things are pretty much evening out, and it's going to turn into a macro game with Rogue getting his third hatchery down as well. This is a little bit of a weird map. This is called Sniper Ridge, by the way, and it's a little bit of a weird map where the third base is not really super close to the second base, which, well, I guess that's not actually that weird for the third to not be super easy to take. But the one thing you have to know about this map, though, is that there's it's called Sniper Ridge, and you can kind of see it a little bit on the minimap now, maybe, if you squint your eyes, that there are these long ridges. There's basically like a cross through the middle of the map, one vertically through the center and one horizontally through the center of these ridges that are just these big, long raised areas with a ramp on either side, a long ramp. And so it makes for interesting situations. It makes it really hard to contain, but it actually ends up being kind of good for Zerg to try and contain because they can line up lurkers along a long area and still have the high ground advantage instead of on a lot of maps where there's a short ramp. The Zerg player has to set up a couple lurkers at the edge of the ramp, and then the rest of the lurkers are behind that. And so you kind of have to fall back to the worst ground to hold. Whereas, if you've got Dragoons versus Lurkers that are attacking uphill, they're actually missing shots. If you're a StarCraft 2 fan and you're just watching this game for the history lesson on these old players, in StarCraft 1, if you were firing up to the high ground, there was a mischance on all of your shots. So it's a definite disadvantage if you're firing uphill, basically. So in any case, we have Stats just kind of keeping his wall there, building up his macro, getting his Corsairs out, and we have Rogue just doing his standard stuff as well, getting his tech out. We saw the Hydralisk Den coming down a little bit ago, so he's going to be able to start producing Hydras to defend against the Corsairs that he's expecting. And I say expecting because he actually hasn't really gotten a good scout into Stats' base, so he doesn't exactly know what's going on. He just kind of has to assume that Stats is playing standard play, basically. And he is, luckily. There's no kind of weird bust coming or anything like that. Although it is hard to do an expansion build and then go for some sort of all-in. It's a little bit awkward. But, yeah, and we do have the Hydralisk out, so they're going to be able to stop that Corsair from doing too much damage. But one of the main points of that first Corsair is just to scout and see what the Zerg player is doing. See if the Zerg is going for some kind of all-in play, because he could be getting, just a bunch of Hydralisks. And he knows kind of what's going on because his probe stayed alive for quite a while. But, he doesn't know if the Zerg is if Rogue is trying to just go all in with a bunch of Hydralisks early or something along those lines. And now he can say, okay, well, this looks normal. I'm good to go. And it's not surprising, too, since they are cross positions on this map, which is a 4-spawn map, it's pretty long distance. And here we go. This is the Overlord. He got Overlord speed in order to... Oh, is it? No, he doesn't have drop upgrade. He can't have drop yet, but this is the Scouting Overlord. Oh, he loses a Corsair! That is actually huge because the Protoss player definitely wants to start building up that Corsair count so they can get air superiority. And see, he's got, it looks like 2 more right now. Imagine if that was 3 with a 4th on the way. And it looks like he's actually just going to give up on the air. He says, all right, well, my opponent has a lot of Hydralisks. I'm not going to bother right now. And this is what he's worried about. So he's starting to get these cannons because he's worried about the bust. And this is kind of the tug-of-war game that we often see in ZVP of this era, where the Zerg gets some Hydralisks and just threatens the front wall. the Protoss has to make several cannons behind it, just because if they don't, then they're going to get busted. Then you know, a dozen and a half Hydralisks are just going to come in and kill them. And hold that thought, because we do have a Dark Templar creeping into the third base here, but there's an Overlord and a Hydralisk and more to come. And the DT gets cornered a little bit, and I don't think it's going to be able to outrun those. Maybe it will. Yeah, because the Hydralisks have to stop for a moment to fire, so the DT does get away, but it also doesn't do any damage, crucially. So that's the difference there. Anyway, we did see the Overlord go in and scout, so kind of both players know exactly what the other one is doing. Oh, but so, yeah, so he needs to build those cannons, but then at the same time, the Zerg doesn't need to attack. So you get this situation where the Zerg just says, okay, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of whittle down your wall and take out the front of your wall so I can try and invade later. And also sometimes build up their own wall, because we did see a few Zealots, and he's sending in another Overlord to scout. He's going to spot the robotics facility and the High Templar there as well, which is an interesting thing to note there. And the High Templar are really going to be the crucial factors that are going to hold things off. So again, you know, it's kind of like, for the Protoss player, you're almost forced into this exact scenario with this expansion of getting the wall, getting the cannons, getting the High Templar. Otherwise, you kind of need to worry about getting Hydralisk busted for, you know, the first 7 minutes of the game, essentially. And you're just devoting your entire macro to that. And now that he's got the High Templar out, now he can start building up his own forces, trying to do more harassment, and trying to start thinking about building up a Dragoon count and a Zealot count to push out. And he does actually have a significant amount of Zealots on the map, and they're just kind of running around, seeing what stuff they can pick off. I believe they do have the Zealot leg speed upgrade as well, so they're going to be pretty mobile, and they're not going to be too worried about getting caught and losing that portion of his forces. So it's really smart of him to be out on the map. Stats being able to be out on the map, and with this Dark Templar as well, he's got two threats. He's got the DT, and he's got the Zealots, and both of them are enough to kind of keep Rogue from getting too comfortable, essentially. Rogue has to be a little bit worried about these things running into his expansions, and ideally he'd be wanting Rogue to make some defenses, like that one Sunken Colony's main, which is set up for the anti-DT stuff. But I think ideally he would want Rogue to be building more static defenses, and he's not really building a lot of static defenses. He's just dealing with it with his mobile units, and so mobile units are defenses that can be turned into offense very, very quickly. Corsair coming in for a little scouting run is going to get a free Overlord kill for its trouble and spot the Defiler Mound. Ooh, very interesting. This Lurker has been pre-buried in the mineral line, and that actually could be really bad, because even programmers don't always split their workers when they Maynard to a new base, and so when they transfer their workers to a new base, and so if all those workers go to a single mineral patch and that Lurker gets a couple shots on them, it could be a very quick kill on an entire probe line. Zergling's just kind of running around seeing what damage they can do, and they're going to run into the Protoss army, which is posturing, and again forcing. Now it's come to the point in time where Stats has bunkered in long enough that he's built up a sizable enough force and all the tech that he needs that he can start pushing out, and he needs to start pushing out now before the Defilers can get Consume upgraded and start getting Dark Swarms on top of things. Of course, the Zealots are going to be pretty decent under the Dark Swarms, but without Dragoons to help, it's going to greatly decrease the efficacy of Stats' army. Of course, the Storms are going to be the main source of the damage as well. Oh my god, there's a ton of Zerglings there. It looks like 4 control groups of Zerglings out for Rogue, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's not ridiculous. I guess it's not too hard. And here we go. Here's these probes. Where are they gonna go? Oh gosh. Oh, are we gonna see a slaughter right now? It's only like 5 probes, but still. Nope, they've been Maynarded to the top patch. They're gonna split up. And oh, does he have it on stop position? Oh, he's got the hold position trick on this Lurker. He's going to wait until there's a better target, and then he's going to let loose at the crucial moment. It's basically been put on hold position, and so he can stop it from attacking and then wait for a crucial moment. He's probably going to wait for there to be, and there he goes. Now he says, all right, now there's plenty of probes. I'm going to let loose. He gets 2 probes, and they're transferred away relatively quickly. Only gets a couple probes, but that was really clever by Stats. Really, really cheeky. Pre-burying that Lurker like an hour and a half ago and putting it on hold position so it wasn't going to fire and reveal itself. Beautiful play there. But it's not going to be enough, and we are going to see that Lurker die. But it's going to stop mining at this third base for quite a while. Oh, is he going to catch these High Templar? Oh, no, he catches one High Templar and kills it off. That is pretty bad, and he's actually forced to use 2 Psi Storms on a single Lurker as well. So he's got more Storms where that came from, but he's gonna run out at some point. And there's, I mean, one Storm could kill like half of those Zerglings in the right conditions. But usually, you know, the Zerglings are often sent in small squads in order to bait out the Storms, because you actually want the Storms on the Zerglings so that the Hydralisks aren't stormed as well sometimes, depending on what your army composition is. And it looks like Rogue trying to take a 4th base at the top right is going to get shut down by a couple Zealots. That's exactly the kind of harassment that you need to do as the Protoss, because the Protoss does kind of have map control right now. If they had a heads-up army versus army battle, I think Stats would probably win, just by virtue of the fact that the positioning is more difficult with the Lurker line. That, I mean, basically to kill off all those Zealots, you need the Lurkers. It's going to be hard to deal with all those Zealots without some Lurkers doing damage. And so Stats can't really engage and run in and fight the army at the defensive point that we're seeing right now. This is the defensive point. The Zerglings waiting in the wings so that when the engagement happens, he can send them in bit by bit or all at once if he thinks the Storms are all gone, and they can do significant damage. They probably do have the crackling upgrade, the adrenal glands that makes them attack at a ridiculous rate of speed. They could be so effective. And here they're actually going into this third base. He snuck a group of Zerglings around, and a Storm goes down, killing a lot of them. A Swarm goes down as well, but it's not going to do any good. The Swarm is only stopping a single cannon from having an effect here. So completely, if there hadn't been those defenses, that base would have gone down very quickly with that many cracklings. But instead, with the Reaver there as well, and a Storm to be put down on the initial attack, easily defended by Stats. Defends his third base and looks to be trying to take a 4th base at the right side as well. And what the heck? We've got some Guardians in here that are going to come in and from range go over and attack over here. And I believe he still has a couple Corsairs around, so he might be able to deal with those eventually, but not before he loses several probes. He can use Storms on them as well, but Rogue has spaced out his Guardians so that so that Stats can't storm them both at the same time. And he's actually still getting probe kills. He didn't pull all the probes. 4 Psi Storms! 4 Psionic Storms used up in order to kill those. Not as big of a deal at this stage in the game, because he's perfectly happy to use up those Psi Storms, morph into an Archon, and have more meat at the front of his army, which is also going to do damage, of course. I like the addition of the Reavers. It's really nice to have the Reavers there. You don't have to quite babysit Reavers as much as you do High Templar in order to use their AoE defenses. And losing a random Defiler, that is an expensive loss in the middle map for no reason here. So, and Stats is continuing to shut down every attempt at taking a 4th base. We saw Rogue try to take another one before. I didn't see where it was, but I think he's trying to take another one at the left side now. But that's if he loses that, he's going to be so far behind economically with Stats taking a 4th base right now. And is this a Doom drop? Oh, this is going to be crazy. Let's see if they... I mean, yeah, I don't think he'd be faking with that. Well, I guess he could fake a drop and then go in with the front or something like that, but I have to believe these are full of units, and they're going to drop out slowly, which is going to bait out some of the... Oh, and a Storm drop going at the same time. He doesn't pull his drones, losing several drones there. Not a huge blow to his economy, though, but he's going in, and oh no, the Reaver survives! Oh no, the Reaver just doing so much damage. The Zealots were distracting all of the Zerglings, and the Reaver survives long enough to kill all of the Zerglings. Just that one Reaver there, no Storm needed. Another Guardian has been spotted over here at the left side of this bottom base. But a Scout is out! Ladies and gentlemen, a no-Kappa Scout, an unironic Scout has been built by Stats, and he's going to use it to kill off the Guardians and defend that base. Oh, this game is awesome. This game is so awesome. Rogue is in a lot of trouble right now. That Swarm is not going to last very long because there's enough Zealots there. I think if he wanted to, he could probably just go in and kill off that base. I think Stats also knows that he doesn't need to right now. I think he knows that he can just kind of keep map control. Even if he lets Rogue have that 4th base... it's okay right now because he has 4 bases of his own, and as long, you know, the Zerg kind of wants to be 1 base ahead of their opponent. generally have less drone saturation and that kind of thing. So to have the same economy, they need more bases, theoretically speaking. Jesus Christ, is that 6 or 7 Archons? Oh my god, he's got more Guardians, he's got Scourge to kill off the Scouts! What is happening in this game? This is amazing. More Psystorms are going to go down those Guardians, though. And he's got the Scourge just waiting there, just taking up gas that could be used for other units. And he's getting down Plagues as well, by the way. So I believe all of the Dragoons at this point, and probably half the Zealots, have been plagued. So that's going to actually be pretty significant in the long run. But you can't plague Archons, ladies and gentlemen. It just tickles them. And here he comes in trying to not just go for the 4th base and limit the economy, but going for the Jugular right now and going into the 3rd base right near the expansion point. If he can kill off this base, he will cripple Rogue. In this game, the Dark Swarms go down, but the Archons are still doing significant splash damage underneath, but the Ultralisks are joining the fight as well. And Ultralisks under Swarm are just absolutely deadly. They're having to kind of dance back and forth to stay underneath the Swarms. And actually, that one Ultralisk is not underneath the Swarm at all. And so, not the best placement of Storms, but it doesn't even matter. So much splash damage. Oh my god, and look at these Lurkers just trying to get up the ramp. I think he's going to have to ditch that base. That base is gone. And he's going to stack up his... Oh, he's going to stack up his Lurkers as well so they can all be killed by the Reaver. Oh, this is just not looking good for Rogue at all. And, you know, yeah, I think this is going to be GG pretty soon. If Rogue... And he's got a cute little tricksy Lurker egg on the ramp to kind of protect the Lurkers behind it. But I don't think it matters at this point. He still stopped mining at that bottom middle base. But now he's losing not just this base, but losing all of his army as well. Losing all of his Lurkers that he had in a nice defensive position. Really kind of cool maneuver here for Stats to, instead of going in the long ramp on the left of that location where all of the Lurkers were lined up in a beautiful defensive stance, he says, you know what? This choke point is really easy to defend, and so you haven't defended it because you don't expect me to go this way. So he just marches up this little choke point where there's no static defenses and no Lurkers at all, and just goes in and kills the 3rd. And in a desperate attempt to save the 3rd, Rogue sloppily throws away all of his army there. I think he, you know, if he'd maybe just double expanded and just held that position and sandwiched that army and collapsed around it, you know, he could have theoretically held on in the game a little bit longer, had a comeback chance. But in this case, didn't happen that way. Tried to save that 3rd base and lost his entire army, and then it was just Stats' game 100% from there on out. So anyway, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The first game in a lot of games that these two players would end up playing against each other over the years. Like I said, I'll have to double check, but I looked it up before, and I think that they, played against each other in like 7 or 8 or 9 different StarCraft 2 tournaments over the years of different levels and that kind of thing. So, but this was the first. This was the very first one, very first game that they played in a tournament, in a tournament setting, and it was a Pro League game. And Stats is going to go ahead and take that game for his team. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching. A little bit of a history lesson, a little bit of a callback to the history, the past of the players that are now the dominant players in Blizzard esports in the world, or at least in Korea, I guess. One quick extra note being added in editing after the fact. I was just looking some stuff up and I didn't realize this when I found this game before, but this was actually part of the combo StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2 team league that they had, where the teams were actually competing in both games at the same time and players were shifting back and forth. And it was kind of a weird, crazy time where Kespa was trying to adapt to the new game, but at the same time they wanted to appease the old fans and the old players that were really used to StarCraft 1, and so it was like a transition period. So this game was actually played while both these players were kind of transitioning to StarCraft 2 also, along with the teams and the leagues. So just an interesting point there. And there's places you can read more about that on like Team Lick, what have you, if you want to learn more about that whole situation. But in any case, hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much for watching. GG, and hope you're all doing well. Thanks.